All right, we're gonna go ahead and get it started. What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the Life of Champ podcast. For today's episode 207, we're going to be discussing an interesting topic, one that hasn't really been discussed, but I feel like it kind of has an overarching message throughout most of my podcast. But we're going to be discussing symptoms of a deeper problem. So this is going to be a topic that I believe is something that a lot of people are lacking and is part of the reason why they have so many problems or perceived issues in their life. And I'll go ahead and go over that today. A few things I want to say before I go to get started. Make sure you're going to follow me at Twitch, TikTok, Rumble, Spotify, at Life of a Champ podcast on every single platform. As well as make sure you go ahead and leave a like on my YouTube shorts as well as my YouTube clips. If you can't catch a full podcast or you can't catch it live, please tap in with that for sure. Other than that, for the people that do not know me, my name is Champ, and I help men build their foundation of masculinity. So if you need any help, feel free to reach out on any platform, and I am willing to help you out. One-on-one coaching I do have available as well. So getting into it, symptoms of a deeper problem. Now, this is going to be something that I believe a lot of people are lacking, right? So I could agree, and of course, like I'm my own self, and I understand my own insufficiencies and stuff like that. But I could assume that you watching this, you're going to have your own issues, you're going to have your own insufficiencies, you're going to have your own bad habits or your own identities that you hold on to that are let's just say less than convenient, right? Everybody has those, and with having those, you must recognize that now it might be something that you feel like you're dealing with. It might be an identified issue that you have, right? Within any of these things, right? But with that being said, I do believe a lot of those things can all boil down to a lack of clarity. They're symptoms of a much deeper issue that does lie. And I do believe that, let's just say you were even willing to solve that, or you went about solving that problem. If you didn't solve the underlying issue, the deeper issue that is the reason why you feel the need for that, then quite frankly, even when you do get that, you're still going to be lacking something. And I feel like that can go for a lot of different areas, and hopefully you understand, and hopefully you might even feel some of the things that I'm saying when I say that it is usually going to be deeper. There's going to be a deeper rooted problem that is some of the insufficiencies, like I said, whether it's an identity that you uphold or a problem or a habit that you have, right? Usually it's going to be something deeper than what we recognize. And of course, it's going to be something that we must. It's really really hard to dissect exactly what it is when we're in the midst of the problem. It's something that is very very hard to identify, and something that will only be more easily identifiable through clarity, right? So you must be clear with a lot of these things. And when I say must be clear, I feel like that's very very broad. That's a very broad idea. It's very very it's like a band-aid, right? Just be more clear, right? What does that even really mean? And to me personally, that means that means to be a lot more transparent with yourself by asking yourself hard questions that most people wouldn't ask themselves, and to be able to identify really really what's going on, and not necessarily the narrative that you're spinning within your own mind, but truly what is actually happening within the situation. And I feel like a lot of those problems that people have, the deeper issue is a lack of clarity. And that lack of clarity would resolve a lot more things. And it would probably solve a lot more issues. On top of that, I think it would create probably a little bit more issues as well, but it would also create more answers more than anything. And I feel like life is a repeating process of becoming clear and then having more problems. And then, hopefully becoming more clear once again, solving your problems. And then of course, life is always going to have more problems, and that is exactly what life's about. But I don't necessarily want to frame the mind of problems as most people do. When I see a problem, a problem, what it really is an opportunity, right? And I feel like a lot of people need to frame it that way, because problems, they're usually seen in the most they're usually seen in a negative light, and they definitely can be, depending on the problem, of course, can be viewed in a negative light. But I do believe that they are simply opportunities. They're character building moments, and that is how I see them, whether it's in the moment or whether it's past after that, right? Problems that you have within your day-to-day life are simply character building moments, right? You need this for whatever reason, whether you understand it in the moment or whether you don't. Most of the time you probably won't. But it's all to build the type of character that you're meant to be. And with that being said, if you have problems, that means you have opportunities. If you have opportunities, you have a chance to solve a deeper problem by, obviously, like I had mentioned, being very, very clear, asking questions to seek that clarity. And with that, of course, obviously having more answers, asking more questions, seeking out clarity, you're going to have more answers that you can implement, and to see if that is exactly the right answer that you needed, or if that's the right adjustment that you needed to go ahead and have. And with that being said, obviously you must understand, or you must begin to essentially get feedback from that solution, right? That solution is going to give you hopefully some feedback, so you can go ahead and say, okay, I need to make this adjustment, or I need to take this approach, or maybe that was the right implementation, but maybe I just did it wrong. So you can definitely make certain adjustments that you need to go ahead and make. But you're only going to make that through clarity, through trial and error. And there's a lot of people that they're just stuck in this mode of thinking. They're just overthinking all the time. And thinking can cause problems. So, like, let's just say one of your issues is thinking. The reason why you're thinking is probably because you're not acting. And the reason you're not acting is probably because you lack clarity on what to act on. So, with that being said, obviously that's probably an issue that a lot of people have, thinking or overthinking. The only thing that's going to solve that is clarity, number one, and number two is action. That's it. And that's gonna solve that right there in itself is going to solve a lot of problems. Obviously, the problem that you have is probably going to extend a lot deeper than just a lack of, or a thinking might be an element, of course. Obviously it has to be somewhat of an element, but let's just say your problem, for example, is you want to be confident. You're not a confident person right now, right? And you want to build your confidence. You must begin to seek clarity. What does confidence look like, right? What does it look like? What actions can you observe within a person's behavior that is going to be a signal of confidence? What do they do? How do they move? What do they say? What do they sound like? Right? Asking all these questions, if you're a person that, let's just say isn't a confident person, most of the time you don't understand truly what it is, what it takes to be confident. And obviously this is just one mere example of the many different examples of complex problems, but let's just say the deeper meaning is a lack of clarity. Do you really understand what it takes to be confident? Have you broken it down? Have you observed it enough? Or are you just so stuck in your own problem, right? And that's usually what it is. So let's just give you another example. Let's just say your problem or issue or insufficiency or a bad habit that you have. Let's just say you are a person who's depressed, right? I do believe most of the reasons why people are depressed, I'm not going to say all, is going to be from a lack of clarity. You lack something that other people do not lack, and that is going to be the difference within your emotional temperament. Is simply some people know certain things that you don't, or they have a certain perspective of something that you do not, and that is very, very interesting, because that is a lack of clarity on your end. Maybe that's a lack of naivety on their end, but at the end of the day, you're lacking clarity on something that is what I would deem to be fundamental of how you approach life, right? If you want to be a happy person in this life, but more importantly, you want to be a fulfilled person in this life, and more importantly, you obviously don't want to be a person who's depressed. But in order to avoid that problem of depression, you're probably going to need to seek clarity. The observable differences between the people who are depressed and people who aren't depressed. This is something that I've mentioned on previous podcasts before. But there's going to be fundamental differences between the people that have the issue that you have and the people that do not have the issue that you have. And the people that do not have the issue that you have, what do they have that you don't? What do they think about that you don't? How do they approach that situation in a way that you do not? What do they see that you don't see? Do you have a lack of clarity? The deeper rooted problem, the underlying problem of most things, a lack of clarity. And of course, you're not always going to be able to be clear on everything, and that is obviously life. But at the same time, I see a lot of people who have problems. For the most part, their solution is going to be a lack of, or seeking clarity. That's going to be their solution, seeking clarity. but they don't try enough. They don't care enough. They care just enough to suffer through the problem. They do not care enough about the problem that they have to go ahead and implement a solution that would look like first seeking clarity. Regardless of what it is, seeking clarity, and I've mentioned it probably already 100 times on this podcast, is going to be the fundamental resolve to most deep underlying problems, right? It's going to be the solution for the most part. I've already given you a few examples, but hopefully, if you have an example, whether you're watching this live or rewatching this, I want you to go ahead and put it in the comments, right? And just leave it in the comments. So if you have a problem right now that you're feeling, or that you're going through, right? Or opportunity that you have that has arisen within your life, right? An opportunity, like I had mentioned, right? Put it in the comments. Whatever it is, just put it in the comments. And then as we go on with this podcast, hopefully you can begin to dissect exactly the fundamental issues that is or that do exist. Because like I said, it is going to be much deeper than just that problem. Usually, what is the word I'm looking for? Usually problems are very much, they're linear. So if you have a problem, there's probably a reason for that problem, and you probably have another problem that you don't necessarily know about. So I do believe that if you have an issue, like one of the ones I've used for an example, which a lot of people do have these issues, or you have let's just say you have an issue with women, right? This is going to be another issue that is going to be an issue that is very, very common. You have an issue with women, and let's just say you're trying to find a high value woman in a world filled with people who are less than high quality, right? Let's just say this is just an example, right? You lack clarity that, let's just say, a man who has a woman like that doesn't necessarily, they don't have that block. They have a certain type of clarity that you do not have. They have a certain perspective that you do not have. And of course, you must be very observant. You must ask questions, right? You must seek out the answers. And of course, it's going to look different. It's going to look different, and it's going to look more elaborative than that. But at the end of the day, it is going to come back to a lack of clarity, a lack of understanding, a lack of understanding that there's a deeper issue that must be resolved. And of course, with the deeper issues, so once you seek out the clarity, you find some of the solutions to your problem. Hopefully, you begin to implement some of these problems. Hopefully, you can find a deeper problem that is the underlying issue that had caused that first issue that initially was the one that you had recognized. And once you had recognized that problem, and obviously the deeper problem under that, you must begin to obviously plan out how you would go about solving this problem. So let's just say just a big problem. Let's just say we'll just use the confidence one for example, right? Obviously, seeking through clarity is obviously going to be one thing, one element of solving the problem, right? Seeking clarity is going to be one element of most problems, right? But you must also take into account that there's going to be small micro steps that you can take that are going to put you in a position of being a confident person, right? Obviously, you dissecting a person who is confident was going to give you a lot of it's going to give you a lot of feedback, right? But at the same time, you must implement it yourself, and more importantly, you must identify the small subtle acts of confidence that one portrays, right? That if you implement it, you can get potentially the same results. So let's just say, confident people, they look people in the eyes, right? They talk and they don't talk under their breath. They talk and they have a louder voice. They have more of a commanding presence. Maybe their body language is a certain way, right? And maybe the reason that you weren't confident is simply because you didn't portray yourself physically in a way that is at least comfortable within their environment. That could be one of the solutions, or one of the reasons why you're not perceived as a confident person, and maybe you don't feel confident yourself. Obviously, there's going to be many other issues. There's going to be many other things that go into that, but obviously that could be potentially one of them. But there's going to be many things. There's going to be many steps that are going to be a lot more digestible. So if I say just be a confident person, that's obviously not going to be very helpful at all. But if I say do what a confident person does, Try to talk to more people, right? Try to engage within, let's just say, more small talk. Let's just say have conversations with people that you don't even need to have conversations with. Just strike up a conversation. See where it goes. Maybe it can go somewhere, maybe it doesn't. But just see what happens. Because that's what confident people do. Confident people, they strike up conversations. They don't think about striking up conversations. They just have conversations. They just exist. And their existence is going to look like having those conversations. So, get to the point where you can just strike up a conversation and you don't have to think about it, right? That'd be a step in the right direction of being a confident person, right? Trying to implement this, first making it a conscious action, and hopefully getting to the point where that conscious action is your identity, and after that is your identity, then that is simply who you are, and you don't. It's no longer a disconnect from who you want to be and who you are. So there's going to be little things like that, and like I said, I'm giving examples, but there's going to be little things like that that are going to be the difference. The difference between somebody who has that problem and who consistently is encountering this opportunity, and someone who takes advantage of that opportunity and who says, this is a problem that a lot of people have or a lot of people perceive, but I recognize that as an opportunity to get better. It is a character building moment. In order for me to get to be the best person that I need to be, I need to overcome this one problem. I need to take on this one opportunity. And after I take on this one opportunity, I'm going to be better for it. And who knows what can happen because you decided to work on a problem consciously. And that's something that I feel like doesn't really get said enough. How many people do you know that first recognize the problems that they have and that are too consciously and diligently working towards the solution to their problem? How many people do you know like that? I feel like when you observe people after a certain age, a lot of people, they just stop giving a shit. That's just what it is. It doesn't take a great observer to understand that most people, they get to a certain age and they stay relatively the same for the rest of their life. They get comfortable, they stop learning, they stop solving problems, they're pretty much settled in with their problems, and they can become a little bit more content with their problem. It's not something that really bugs them to go ahead and fix, so therefore they just kind of have the same problems, and that is their life. Is that a life that you would like to live? Me personally, that is not a life that I would like to live. It's not a life that I see myself living. But it's all going to come down to clarity. It's all going to come down to being able to recognize, and then obviously not only recognizing, but being a person who's going to take an effortful approach. If you don't take an effortful approach, there's going to be a good chance that you're going to be settling for a life that is going to have problems that you could solve if you did see clarity, if you did implement the things that you recognize that those people who don't have the same problem have. But just little things like that, man. Little things like that is going to be the complete difference between the entire trajectory of your life. What are you willing to go ahead? What are you willing to go ahead and do? How much effort are you willing to go ahead and put in? Give me 1 second, all right? So with this lack of clarity, okay, if you have an opportunity like I mentioned, or what some could perceive as a problem, like I said, a problem of an issue that you're going through in life, an insecurity or insufficiency that you have, a bad habit that you hold on to, or an identity that is got a hold of you. Once you identify the problem, obviously seeking out clarity being the next step. The next step after that is to hopefully have an ideal, right? You must begin to expand. You must begin to expand on who you want to be and what you want to do about that. Who do you want to be after that, and what do you want to do in order to be that person? And you must approach it by taking and by acting on, and this is something that I mentioned earlier, essentially more digestible steps towards your newfound clarity. So, if, for example, let's just say you're a person that's not confident. I'm going to keep using this example. Or let's just say you're a person that's overweight, right? Obviously, a problem that unfortunately a lot more people have nowadays, right? Let's just say you're overweight. and your new ideal, who you want to be and what you want to do is in a line to a person who's healthy, right? Who's in shape, who's taking care of business, who's not letting health be something that is compromised within their life, right? Hopefully you're a person that has that in check. But if you don't, well, this might be a solution for you, right? So once you begin to clarify who you want to be and what you want to do in order to become that person, now you can go about taking more digestible steps that say this is in a line to who the person that I want to be is. So maybe this looks like, let's just say I have identified there's a healthy version of myself that does exist. For example, right? This person probably isn't going to do this. He's probably not going to eat these things. He's probably not going to say these things. He's probably not going to hang around these certain type of people. He's probably not going to indulge within this certain type of food. He's probably not going to choose this activity over another activity. He's probably not going to claim affinity to this thing like I had once did, right? These little things like that are going to be the differences between a person who stays overweight and a person who doesn't. A person who's hopefully sick of their positioning within life and says, I can make a difference. I can control my destiny. That is not who I want to be. That is not what I want to do. That is not who I want to be. And who I do want to be and what I want to look like is going to look like this. And of course, you could say, lose weight. I want to lose weight, right? But what does that really look like? It looks like an entire identity shift. It looks like an entire habit change. It looks like taking on the opportunity. Because that's what it is. It's no longer a problem. It's an opportunity. There's something that could be built. There's something that could be earned. There's something that is worth seeking after. So hopefully from there, that makes it a lot more easy, right? You must break these things down. So like I mentioned time and time again, if you have an issue, whatever the issue is, the reason you probably have the issue and the reason why it's persisted as long as it has is probably because you lack clarity. If you were to seek out clarity through people who've already experienced the solution, you would no longer have that problem, or you would have it for a lot shorter of a period of time than you've had it, or than you will have it if you are willing to make these observations. Jaden, appreciate for stopping by. She said, act as if you're already the better person. Exactly. Simple as that. It is really as simple as that. But like I said, obviously you must break down. Not it's simple, but it's simple. It's that simple, but it's not that easy. And if it's simple but not that easy, make it easier. Break down the simplicity. It's simple. It's simple to do that. But what does that? How do you act that out? What does that look like? That is the clarity that I've been talking about. That is the clarity that you must search for. That is the clarity that you must seek after. Because realistically, if that is a problem that you have that you don't want anymore, what else is your course of action? And if, for example, right, let's just say you want to lose weight, and let's just say the deeper problem is you're not confident. And the deeper problem is you lack good health. Right? So it can be multi-layered. And then that is what I mean with these problems is the solution to a symptom of a problem is usually going to be clarity. Or not the symptom. The symptom of a larger problem, or rather, the solution of a deeper problem is usually going to be clarity. Like I said, those problems can be multi-layered, and yes, it might feel like, oh, I'm just not a confident person, but really it could be attributed to a lot of different things. But you must be willing to understand that it can be attributed to a lot of different things, and if it is, then quite frankly, you got something you can do. You have an opportunity. But you must be conscious, and you must be aware, and you must have placed your focus on this, and you must have taken it serious. You must understand that you lack something, right? And that is obviously the most humbling of experiences, right? No one wants to feel like they're lacking of anything. It's not. It's a very, very unflattering existence. It's very, very. It's hard on the psyche. It's what it is, right? It's hard on the ego. But the people who recognize this insufficiency within themselves are the people who you want to be. It's as simple as that. That's the way that I perceive it, right? They've experienced that most. They've experienced that lack of satisfaction with the self. They've experienced that most. They were willing to get over it. They were a person who was seeking out clarity, and they went ahead and got more clarity. After they got more clarity, then they were able to go ahead and act in accordance to solving their issue, taking on their opportunity. But it is going to be, like I said, it's not necessarily easy. It is simple, but you have to make the simple even simpler. That's how it's really easy. These things are not going to just be easy. Solving problems are not necessarily easy, but they can be made to be more simple. So have you simplified your problems? Have you actually simplified? Have you taken the time? I already know that you have some problems, right? And I already know that you know the solution to a lot of your problems, right? But just because you know that, you haven't taken any action, and if you haven't taken any action, it's probably because you lack some type of clarity. You lack some purpose, you lack some clarity. So, once you can be real with yourself and understand that there's probably going to be deeper problem to some of the problems that you have, there's going to be an opportunity. And sometimes the symptoms merely get just flared up, right? You have a symptom of a more complex problem that you must begin to understand. Hopefully, you must hopefully want to understand. And a lot of the problems that you have, maybe they are some of the deeper issues, right? But some of the problems that you have are simply just symptoms of deeper problems, and you must act as if it is, right? So let's just say you have an insufficiency. There's probably something that is a lot deeper than that. That is the root cause to why you feel the ways you feel, or move the ways you do, or the identities that you uphold, or the habits that you hold on to, right? There's probably something that is deeper there. And the more clarity you have to go ahead and solve that symptom of a deeper problem, the more of that deeper problem is going to be revealed to you. And then from there you can go ahead and take the same course that I have mentioned time and time again. Seeking clarity. Why does that exist? What is different? What is different about me than other people that don't have that problem, right? It's going to hopefully you begin to understand exactly what I'm trying to say here, but the main message is this. Most people's perceived problems that they have on a day-to-day basis are simply symptoms of a more complex problem that they have within their own life. Let's just say, for example, let's just say you're not choosing the best habits to uphold, right? A lot of that could be boiled down to a lack of purpose. Let's just say you're constantly choosing the wrong solution. You're constantly choosing the wrong action. Majority of the time, you might say, dude, you know what? I'm choosing this wrong thing. I keep fucking up. I keep holding on to this habit, right? I keep trying to be this person, right? But what you fail to understand, the deeper problem, right? It could just be you lack purpose. You lack meaning in your life. That is going to be a deeper rooted problem that will be shown in symptoms. But if you don't understand the potential that the symptoms can be, which are deeper problems, then you might not be able to fully you might not be able to try to you might not be able to eventually grasp the concept that there can be a deeper issue than that, right? But here's the thing. There's a lot of people who have symptoms of deeper problems. They fail to remedy the symptoms, so they never get down to the root cause. And that is their tragedy. Their tragedy is Their tragedy is simply, man, their tragedy is simply their lack of action, their lack of clarity, their lack of wanted action. And that is going to be a huge problem that a lot of people have. Hopefully, I've given you some clarity. Hopefully, you can begin to approach problems with this mindset, right? With this approach that I do believe is important, that I do believe is relevant, is very relevant to a lot of people's problems. Hopefully, you could take something from this. If you did, feel free to leave it in the comments. If you have any comments, questions regarding anything that I've mentioned, or maybe you just like something that I mentioned, please feel free to leave it in the comments. But other than that, I'll go ahead and end it off. This was episode 207 of the Life of a Champ podcast, where I was discussing the symptoms to a deeper problem. Feel free to go ahead and follow me on Twitch, TikTok, Rumble, Spotify, at Life of a Champ podcast. Subscribe if you're new. Leave a like on my YouTube shorts. You already know what time it is, man. I'll leave you guys off with the podcast motto. Fellas, out here, we don't just work around here, man. We outwork. So make sure y'all working these motherfuckers, because you know that I am, and you know that everyone else around me is for sure. Other than that, just handle your business, man. Approach that new opportunity. Approach not that problem. Approach that opportunity. It's an opportunity for you to grow. It's an opportunity for you to build the character that you were meant to be, and approach it simply as that, and you might be better off. If not, feel free to go ahead and persist with symptoms of a much deeper problem. It's as simple as that. Next podcast is going to be on Thursday. I'll be doing live streams on Monday. Hopefully Monday and Tuesday of next week. Tapping with that for sure. And yeah, just like that. Tap with the next podcast on Thursday. You guys have a good night.